will be.
I need the best.
I had the best words.
Well, I'm the best there is.
The best. We the best.
Have a chance to be the best of the best.
You are now listening to Best of the Best, presented by Radar Studios. Starring two guys who use their middle initial to sound cool. Here are your hosts, Neil E. Fisher and Mark P. Smith.
So today we're talking to Brandon Cox. He's a cinematographer or director of photography, depending on what how you like to be known. He is, full disclosure, he is a buddy of mine. We went to school together, but he is a successful cinematographer shooting features, a lot of action movies, shooting with Stallone, Dave Bautista, Bruce Willis,
De
Niro.
Yep.
He's a cool guy to talk to, and I think it'll be worth a listen.
Yeah, I think you guys will like it. You'll hear more about the films that he's worked on, but probably in your red boxes or video stores or on-demand listings, you'll see, Arsenal, Marauders, Precious Cargo, Extraction, Heist, movies like that. And right now he's just finishing up Escape Plan 2, Hades, with Stallone and Dave Bautista from Guardians of the Galaxy. So really cool dude, fellow Bruce Lee lover. I was glad that Mark got a chance to bring him on. He's got some great stories. If you're a young cameraman or want to be a DP, want to be a filmmaker, he's got some great advice. He's still hustling. He's still putting himself out there to make movies. But if he even says in the podcast you'll hear, if you want to learn some stuff, you got to learn from people who know what they're talking about and kind of retain all of that to propel yourself forward. So hope you guys like it.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I love the format of the show, and I love the way you guys do it. And I've known Mark for a while, so it's a pleasure and an honor to help out and talk about movies. I mean, because what else can we do for another hour or so? Geek out and talk about movies. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I know Mark's always said how big of a movie buff you are, so you definitely sound like you're right at home with us.
Oh, definitely.
Full disclosure, I know Brandon sort of well. We haven't seen each other in a while, but we went to college together and shot many a short film, student film together. So how did you what was your humble beginnings, I guess we'll say.
Okay. So my humble beginnings were this. I was how do I start? I was always interested in films when I was a kid, and also interested in comic books and illustration, because I started as an illustration. I love to draw. And I think the first film I can remember seeing, as we all remember where we were, I guess, or the first movie you see it. The first movie I remember going to see was Star Wars when I was like 4. But the first movie I actually remember, seeing, this is a weird story, was Raging Bull. And the reason why I saw it, it's funny though, I was like 8 years old. And the reason I saw it was because my older brother was a huge sports fan, and he loved Jake LaMotta, and he knew all about it and all that stuff. He was like 12, but he had all this history about it. I obviously had no idea, and my dad was watching us, and he took my brother to the movies, and I happened to go along. Now, all I remember from seeing from that film was the boxing stuff. I remember all the black and white boxing, and I remember hearing the F word a lot, but I don't remember the movie. I couldn't remember the movie that well, but I do remember going. And then as I got a little bit older, I remember the first two movies that kind of like really struck a chord with me were The Black Stallion. Oh yeah. And because it was so visual, and there's not a lot of dialogue, but it was a film that was very visual. And then Raiders of the Lost Ark. That was the first film when I went to the movie theater. I literally turned to my father and said, "How'd they do that?" He's like, "I don't know. Let's go see it again." And we went and saw it again the next day. So it's like, Spielberg had a big influence on me. And even my father, though. My father always sat me down and made me watch a movie. So it was...
Your dad was a movie guy?
He was a movie guy, yeah. He was a movie guy,
My dad is not a movie guy.
It's funny, though. It's just he would always we'd sit down and watch a movie, and then of course when you get a VCR, you start renting movies, and that started, I always wanted to rent like, action movies, and my dad was like, sit down and watch this movie. And it's like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or like Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah, good taste.
Or like The Magnificent Seven or Shane or something like that. He'd always he'd try to mix it up,
Yeah.
But yeah, so getting out of like the action sort of mainstream stuff and into more things with, not to say with more heart or more story, but just something a little more deeper with meaning and purpose behind it. Yeah, I mean,
right.
He was a big influence on that on me.
Yeah, that was the same for me too. My mom always made me watch movies, mostly horror movies, but we watch a lot of old movies as well. And that's
pretty cool.
Yeah, no, so
you watch horror movies.
Very similar to you too. Like watching stuff, most kids probably wouldn't be watching at a young age, but we both. I always hallmark this.
Showing my son Raging Bull, and not because we're not, we're kind of a liberal family, but I just don't know if he would actually give two.
I don't think he's ready for that yet.
Yeah.
But and it was also because I was being babysit by my dad. My mom was out, so I had to be like, I had to go with my brother, but I fell asleep in that. But I just remember the color and the black and white. And the F-bombs, so that's good.
So when you were did you know that you're like, okay, I want to be part of this, or were you just more of a fan at that point and you were kind of like curious?
I was more curious than anything, but also a fan, obviously. And then when around I think it was around like 11 or 12, my dad had an old camera that was from my grandfather. It was an old like Brownie Super 8 camera.
Yeah.
So then I started messing around with that, but really didn't do much. And then I met a friend in junior high, and we ended up starting making movies together. He had a Super 8 camera. We started making movies like Teen Ghostbusters and
nice.
Fun action movies. I mean, we'd scribble on the film and make like the lasers and and then a lot of stop motion stuff was fun too. Animation, that was a lot of fun to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
but
did you make action movies? Because I know you said you liked them as a young kid. Like, were those somewhat like? Did you do a lot of fight choreography? Because I know a lot of your current films have a ton of fighting in it. So I was just curious if that was still an influence at that age.
Of course, yeah. We would have our mock kung fu movies. We'd be like, we would ransack our like parents' closets and like, oh, this robe looks cool, put that on, and you played dress up, and it was fun, yeah. And it was always like action or some kung fu thing. I think one time we made like a Nightmare on Elm Street, version. Like we got a mask and the plastic glove, and we're like walking around like, trying to kill people. It was fun, it was good fun. No studio behind you saying, "Come on, guys, you only have 12 hours," or all these limitations, or these things holding over your head. It was at that point it was innocent and just like free of all that and just having fun.
That sounds a lot cooler than what I did. I would reenact scenes from The Mask and play both Cameron Diaz and Jim Carrey. So
that sounds cool too. The Mask is a cool movie.
Yeah, so I remember that.
Well, I did not know that. That's insane.
Yeah, that's a good.
But
factoid.
a lot of that. So a lot of that going on.
So your parents are pretty supportive then. You're in terms of your artistic endeavors.
They were because my great grandfather was a sculptor. My great grandmother was a painter and a music teacher. So like the arts have been in my family a little lot. Like not on my dad's side, it was all on my mom's side of the family. But my dad's side's like hardworking and military and all that sort of thing. And then my mom's side of the family has all this like music and art background, so that's sort of like where my illustration came in, and I feel a lot of the cinematography obviously and love of filmmaking. I'll kind of put both those together. You get hardworking and like artistic, so there you go.
What is when did you start getting serious about the filmmaking, and then what were your next steps?
I think up into high school, always watching movies, making movies still with my friend in high school, the same guy. And then I pursued more of my illustration career then. So I got accepted into Savannah College of Art and Design, where Mark and I met.
Yep.
And but this was the first time I went there, and I got a scholarship, and I was going to do. I felt like I wanted to draw comic books. That's what I really wanted to do. And when I got there, I took all the classes and all that, and I took they called it sequential art at the time. Now it's just comic book illustration, whatever.
Right.
And I realized that I could draw and all that, but I realized I wasn't as good as I thought I could be. Well, to me, I thought I couldn't draw comic book. I just couldn't do it. I was just like, this is probably not the right career move for me. And plus, I just was like kind of crushed as like, my artwork isn't as good as everybody else's and all that. And so, out of a whim, just to try something, I took a film elective course, and then that sort of started me on the journey of like, hey, I kind of really like this. But I think it wasn't until like 1995, 1996 where I saw Seven had come out. David Fincher Seven had come out, and I loved the way that movie looked, and I just responded to the visuals of that film, and it just sort of like, all right, I think I want to do this. So that was when it was, and that's how it started.
And then
you think David Fincher and Darius Kanji.
Yeah, Darius Kanji is great.
If I'm not mistaken, you're from North Carolina, is that right?
I'm originally from Maryland.
Okay.
But I grew up in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went to SCAD, and then you moved to West Coast for a bit, right? Am I?
Yeah,
right about
yeah,
that?
exactly. Because like I was having a little like I went to school, I was in a relationship, and then I kind of wanted to pursue filmmaking more than I wanted to pursue illustration. So I had dropped out of school because SCAD at the time it was just a video program. It wasn't a full-fledged film program as it is today when we were there.
Right.
So I wanted to, we saved up my money, and I was going to go to this school down in Florida called Full Sail that had just opened up. But at the time, Full Sail was more of a recording art school for music, really not sort of same thing, but they like had built it up to be a film school and all that. It was there, but they were just pushing more on the music side. So then that kind of was a letdown. So I was in Florida for like half a year, still watching movies religiously, because I by that time I had bought a Laserdisc player. I could watch movies in letterboxed and surround sound and all that. So that was like, I was just feeding my head images every day, watching movies. And by this time, this is when the expository dialogue section of Hollywood came out. So you're having your Quentin Tarantino's and your Richard Linkletters, and all of that was starting to take shape. The independent film movement was starting to take shape. This is pre P.T. Anderson time. So,
a dark time.
And then, the good time. No. And then, I came out to LA, and I went to a community college at a film program. And my idea was to transfer to a 4-year school that had a film program. And I was like, OSC, SC. And then I found out about this school called the AFI, which had a master's program and graduate school. It's all prestigious, and all these like great people went there. And I didn't realize you could go there for cinematography. You can get a master's in cinematography. But I wanted to hone my craft a little bit more, and I couldn't get into like a proper 4-year school like USC. I wanted to go to SC, but I was like, it's too much more schooling. And then I still have my SCAD credits. So I figure, all right, well, I'll go back to SCAD. And by that time, I think it was like late 99, 2000. Mm-hmm. They had a full-fledged film program, and that's when you were there. Yep. So I decided I went back to SCAD. I met you. You obviously know what I did from there. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I went on and went to AFI, and then from AFI, here we are now. And I graduated 2004 from AFI, 2002 from SCAD, and AFI was a 2-year program. And there you go. Sorry for the long, answer on that. But that was how
this is for. So.
Yeah, that's how that journey. Yeah.
Because part of what we do, or part of what our mission is not only to interview people or go through movies we like, is to also try to like inform, people that might be listening that are trying to, maybe work in commercials like we do and want to break into features or not doing anything yet and want to do something. You know what I mean? So any kind of like, I think people get inspiration by like kind of listening to people's sort of track and how they got to where they are. So we appreciate it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And it's so funny. The question I always get asked in this business around here a lot is like, "Oh, so do you have any family in the business?" And I don't. And it's just like, God, you didn't know anybody? You didn't know anybody? And it's like, no, I just worked hard and, and just did my thing. So it's like, it always surprises people that I don't have family, because a lot of family, you'll notice how small the town is and how small the community is of crew and whatnot.
Right.
Because there is a lot of, like, let's say some guy's dad was a DP and his son's an AC and he's moving up, or, something like that. Like producers have daughters. Yeah. Yeah. And some producers have daughters that are actresses and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
When you graduated and, you were done with SCAD and then you went on to AFI and finished there, what was like the first thing you did or first thing you thought of doing? Like, was it a moment of, okay, I did all this, now what? Or did you have a plan of like, all right, I'm going to find someone and make something, whether it was a short or music video?
I just knew that, like, I mean, yeah, in the back of your mind, you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? You're scared, but I just had to let that go. And I think once I got to AFI, which was extremely competitive, and, it's only like 200 students there. And when you make a film, you watch it in front of your entire class, and then your whole team, which you have like a writer, producer, editor, director, DP, you all sit up there on the stage, and then the whole entire school just rips your project apart. And you can't say a thing unless you're asked a question. So you can't defend your movie, which in reality, you really can't defend your movie anyway. That's how it works. So they're just preparing you for that. Right. And you learn really quickly to have a thick skin. And I had a really rough time at AFI, actually, because the first week everybody's filling everybody out. And it is kind of like a popularity contest. I mean, it really is. Mm-hmm. And not to bash the school. The school is great. But it was a really big popularity contest, and it's funny. I'm not like name dropping or anything. Do you know that you guys know the show Mr. Robot?
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Sam Ishmael was one of my classmates.
Oh wow.
Created Mr. Robot, and there's another guy, Jonathan Levine.
Yep.
He did I think 50-50 and the Christmas movie, I forget, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah.
And,
Night Before.
Night Before, yeah. So that, those are the kind of people I was in school with, and then a ton of great cinematographers that are all professionally working today too as well. But I had a really strong class. But I mean, that was what you were, those were classmates, and like you had to sit up there, put your work up there, and then sort of directors and producers were sort of scheming, okay, I can work with that guy because I like his work. And if they didn't like your work, you were kind of, I've got to make friends fast, or I've got to figure out how to do, And some people did and some people didn't. And your first cycle project is sort of like the tipping point. If you don't knock it out of the park, then you're kind of like in a hole, because not all the sort of like people that really all want to click together want to work together. If you don't get in with them, then you're kind of screwed. And my first one was a little bit of a disaster and sort of put me in this like, I don't want to work with Brandon kind of thing. And it was really tough on me, but it also made me dig deep and like, rise above the occasion and just like, just keep plowing through this, just keep doing this. You're gonna make it happen. So
but
I knew I wanted to do it though. I knew I wanted to do that though. I knew I was going to do it.
Well, that's a good test, and probably equally as educational as anything else, I would say too.
Yeah.
Like to deal with. So obviously I know a little bit about, the DPs and cinematographers you that inspire you. But when you were learning, or when you were in SCAD and AFI, what are some of those guys working that you were like, I like, you gravitated towards, or you were you sort of, trying to, maybe take some techniques or something from them, or
who are your best of the best DPs?
My best of the best DPs. Well, Mark knows Janusz Kaminski was one of them. Mm-hmm. And then as Vittorio Storaro, Darius Kanji, Conrad Hall, Harris Savitas, Robert Ellswood,
Bear Brown.
Bear Brown.
That's an inside joke.
It's an inside joke. He's our cinematography professor at SCAD. Yeah. He's a great guy. Yeah. That's a good one, Mark.
But what was it like? I mean, outside of being a fan of these guys, did you see, looking at their work, were you like, okay, once I leave, or while I'm, whatever, I'm learning my craft and I'm be working professionally. Was there a style or something that you were, obviously you want to serve the story or whatever you're shooting, but was there like a particular style that you were trying to achieve, or you were thinking like that could be my, sort of a signature? Because a lot of those guys you're talking about, like Janusz, and they have even though they shoot a variety of films and stuff, they definitely have like a distinct style. Were you thinking about that too?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because I could go on and keep listing names like Roger Deakins and Matthew Libatique, all that. Each one of those guys, they distinctly have, even though all their body of work is so different. When you're watching a Chivo Lubeski movie, when you're watching a Roger Deakins movie, when you're watching a Bob Ellsworth movie, there are cues in like their lighting, in their composition, in their camera movement. That sort of not give them away, but there's like distinct things. Like I know Bob Richardson's lighting.
Right.
You distinctly know what a Bob Richardson movie looks like, and he has that hard top light. And he doesn't do it all the time, but most of the time, and he likes profile shots. And then like with Bob Ellsworth, you can always tell with this stuff. It's probably going to be anamorphic. It's probably going to be framed a certain way. It's going to be lit a certain way. And the same thing with Janusz. Yeah, I was trying to take like little nuggets from each of their things and sort of like, find my voice, but ultimately tell the story. And so I love the profiles from Richardson, and I love the push-in shots that Wally does, or this hard backlight that Janusz does with this soft key light, or this certain filter. So I was trying things. Yeah, I mean that was really. It's a funny thing because there's a cinematographer, Paul Cameron. He shot Man on Fire and Gone in 60 Seconds and Deja Vu. Yeah. And most recently he just did the latest Pirates movie. And I met Paul at an ASC meeting once, and he, I was just coming out of school, and he's like, look, I was just talking about Man on Fire, about Hand Crank and all this thing, and how much I loved his work. I really liked his work. I saw a lot of my sort of like visual ideas in his work, and so I gravitated towards him. And I said, hey, could you look at my reel? I'm just at AFI, blah, blah, blah. And he said, sure. And I sent it to him, and he gave me like the most amazing email saying, oh, Brandon, you trust the nature of the film stock. You understand this. You're not afraid to go dark. You're not afraid for this. You really don't forget, still be like a kid and take chances. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to do things. And that sort of helped me. That propelled me to like give me freedom. I can do this. If Paul said it, and then I can do it. And so, yeah, I mean that's really you try to learn from the best. And I was very fortunate at AFI because I did get to learn from the best, because we had lighting seminars every Wednesday, and Wally Pfister would come in, Janusz Kaminski, Jim Planette, who's Soderbergh's like really famous gaffer that he worked with a lot. All of these guys, Vittorio Storaro came, Bob Ellsworth came, and we got to learn lighting from these guys. Dante Spinati, so I'm like sitting there, Roger Deakins, I'm sitting there like we're watching his work, and then I'm actually like standing next to him while he's, lighting a scene, and you're asking him, well, why would you use that? Why would you do this? And he would explain. So that built you confidence too, because you're seeing your heroes, but yet you're learning from your heroes. So that sort of inspired and built confidence in with you, like, hey, these guys can do it, and I can do it too.
Well, I totally agree with what you're saying. There's been a lot of times where you just have to put your neck out there, reach out to someone that you admire for what they do, and get advice from people who have been successful, because they've obviously done something right, and they can give you all the knowledge that they've accrued over however many years they've been doing it. And speaking of Janusz, Mark may have told you I'm a huge Spielberg fan. So what was that like for you, meeting him? And I know you have an affinity for him. And what was your interaction with him like?
It was great. I read a story about Janusz when he was at AFI, and I guess when he was there too, there was Wally Pfister was there.
Wow.
Faden Papamichael was on his way out, and then Mauro Fiore, who is also accomplished
Yeah.
DP.
Training Day,
He
right?
was Training Day. Tears of the Sun, The Island, Avatar, and most recently, I think he did Southpaw and Magnificent Seven. But so like Morrow was gaffing Janusz's projects while Wally Pfister was gripping and operating that. That's like, can you imagine having a class with those four guys? I mean,
That's awesome.
or those three guys. It's insane. But there's a story. The story goes, Janusz, I guess, saw Spielberg came to speak at AFI when he was there, and I guess they have like water glasses and all this stuff while the moderator's doing the Q&A thing. And I guess Janusz stole the glass and he's like, I have Spielberg's glass, after the thing. Well, after Janusz, like, I think they were showing Minority Report at the time when I was there. And afterwards, I walked up to him, I talked to him and, told him I was a huge fan, blah, 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 all this. And that was like the first time I met him. Since then, I met him a few other times, but just like, seeing him talk about his work, seeing him talk about his interaction with Spielberg, it was just so inspiring, and he was very inspiring to me. He's just like, just be. He said the same thing that Paul said. Paul Cameron said, be bold, don't be afraid to try things, test things, don't just do what I do, try to do your own thing, and that sort of thing. And at the end of it, after he left, I stole his water bottle. So there you go.
That's so funny.
Do you still have it?
I think I do actually.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. I've met him a few times.
That's amazing.
I've never told him that, but now I'm revealing it today on Best of the
No,
Best.
it's great.
Exclusive.
Yeah.
I have Janusz Kaminski's water bottle.
So I know when you finished AFI, when you started shooting, you were shooting, I know, like more commercial projects and music video stuff. How did that go and I guess come about? And then how has that sort of prepared you for what you're doing now with features and stuff?
Gotcha. Okay. Well, when I did leave AFI, I had another classmate who was from Norway and had he'd already been shooting in Europe, and he'd been shooting music videos and whatnot. So he'd always been he'd been already accomplished with working in the industry, and he wanted to come to AFI to learn more narrative filmmaking, that sort of thing. And when he only did 1 year, and then he went back to Europe, and he told me, "Hey, look, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do some music videos," because his hero was Daniel Pearl. Like, he loved Daniel Pearl's music videos. He loved Hype Williams. That's what he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he said, "When I come back, I really want you to to operate with me or shoot with me," and I was like, "Oh wow, that's awesome." And I forgot about it. And then obviously I graduated. I think I was out of school for 3 or 4 weeks. And he called me and said, "Hey, B. Cox, I got my first music video. It's a country music video. Would you like to come do my second camera?" I did. And it was so much fun that, he called me another week and then another week. And then he was going to like New York and Miami, and he would fly me. And it was, a couple $100, but I didn't care at that point because I was so hungry. I just wanted footage. I wanted to shoot. And, it's kind of unheard of to fly a second unit guy around, and let alone have second unit on a music video. But
Right.
you just don't have the resources or whatnot. But back then, the budgets were still good, and we were still shooting on film. And, I got to accrue a massive amount of footage. And also, he would let me go to the colors time sessions. So I get to meet all these like colorists at Company 3.
Oh, yeah.
These are like the rock star colorists.
Yeah.
And through getting all this footage and all this experience of working and learning how to work very fast and get great results fast, because that's, music videos and marathon, it's a sprint. You got to get great results fast. Same thing like a commercial. You guys know this.
Right.
And I learned how to work really quickly in that environment. And so a producer saw me and noticed I was doing this work as well, and sat me down and said, "Look, I want to get you an agent because you're a great DP and you can do this as well." And I met with an agent, and then boom, I was shooting a video. I started shooting videos.
That's awesome.
And so the music videos then prepared me for features, because again, you have to work really fast within 12 or 14 hours and make it look good.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like that sort of training, which was another film school, that sort of training prepared me for what I'm doing right now with them at Furla Films. Sort of like to segue into that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's sort of to answer your question. That I'm not really doing anything differently from what I'm doing in music videos. I'm just, I'm telling a story rather than doing a commercial for a song.
Right.
It's really, I'm using the same sort of fast, quick techniques and putting them towards these movies.
Were you shooting videos? Did you have? It was like these are like day or two shoots or something. Is that probably what? Right?
Yeah, they'd be like 1 or 2 day shoots. Yeah. And I was on the sort of rise when I guess the music video industry or music industry was going through a little bit of a change because iTunes hadn't really hit yet.
Right.
But there was still money in videos and people actually still watched videos, not on their phones.
Right.
There was no iPhone then, but a few years later, obviously it came in. But so you could still really do something and use a music video as a experiment per se. If like you wanted to try a certain set of lenses or you wanted to try like this camera or this thing, you get your little nuggets in there when you could to just try something. Right. Like I wanted to try hand crank. And so I called Paul and said, hey, how'd you do that in Man on Fire? And he's like, oh, you do this, this, and this. And then I could convince the director, hey, we should try this for this thing and do this. And
it's probably a good, almost like laboratory of music videos in terms of creating visual identity.
100%.
I would think too.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, that Eminem video was really cool. That I watched 3 a.m. and was that one of them that you used a lot of those cool film techniques on?
Yeah. That was cool because I did that video with a group of directors. It was like there's 3 guys and they do their own visual effects and they're called Syndrome Studios. And they do a lot of their own motion graphics, and they're all based out here. And so I had done a few videos for them, like Talib Kweli and a couple other ones. And so we basically, at that point, we kind of had a style going, but they said, oh, we want to mimic this as a horror movie. When we add all this grain and all these flashes and all that. And so it was a lot of fun, and Eminem was game for it. And so, yeah, we did employ a lot of those things into that. And they added in their post stuff that they do and their animation and that sort of thing.
That's awesome. So how did you transition then to the features from
to features?
Yeah.
That was an interesting process because music videos were obviously the stepping stone to get to features. Because my ultimate goal was to do features. That was my ultimate goal. I didn't think I'd ever be doing music videos, but it was a stepping stone to get there. But my buddy who got me into music videos, that's what he wanted to do was features and music videos and commercials.
Right.
And whereas I wanted to do straight up narratives, straight up features.
Yeah.
But I had a friend from art school. I think you remember him, Nalajan Lahiri.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he had come across an Indian producer, and he had this script, and he had this he found this writer. And it's this film. It was interesting, sort of coming of age film about this gay Indian Muslim in West Hollywood who's a banker by day and then sort of frequently gay clubs by night, and sort of his life and turning it upside down. But it was a really intriguing story because it had his whole Muslim background and how it was kind of shunned being gay, and it was really interesting. And he was from Africa, and so it had Africa, it had LA at night, the nightlife, and sort of the gay scene and that sort of thing. And it was a really interesting, great story. And it was based on a book called Ode to Lata.
Okay.
And then they ended it just calling the movie The Ode. Yeah. And it was tough because in the end, we really didn't get a release. It got like a couple festival things, and it's a shame because it was actually a really good film. But that was my first feature, and Neil hired me and right out of, because we knew each other and we said we always wanted to work with each other. And it was good because we got to shoot film, we got to shoot anamorphic, and we got to go to Africa. And so that was my first experience. And then really the second movie that got me, my second movie was The Collector. And that was awesome. The horror movie. But that movie plus my music video experience on my reel helped me get The Collector. So
that's funny. So the guys who made The Collector, Marcus Dunson and Patrick Melton, they both went to University of Iowa, where I went. So I remember after I had gone to Iowa, I was just kind of, looking up and seeing if anyone else that was there possibly around the same time that I was did anything, and that's when that movie came out, and I was like, oh, that's good. So some Iowa guys are getting some stuff done. So that was kind of fun.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's right,
Iowa
Marcus.
boys.
Yeah, Marcus is diehard Iowa fan too. So that's funny. He's always repping something Iowa. He loves that place.
That's funny.
That collector, to me, and I'm not just saying this because you're a friend, but I find it very visually stimulating. How was that? How was that process? Is that shot on film, by the way?
That was shot. The collector was shot Super 16.
Okay.
And then I used 35 lenses, which kind of like you're using the sweet spot of the lens, but still, I just wanted to like give it something different. And I liked shooting 16. I thought that would have been shooting 16 was a cool way. And you and I shot a lot of Super 16 in school, so that was a format which I was really accustomed to using. So, but Marcus was really inspired a lot by Dario Argento.
Oh yeah.
And so he was, and Dario Argento has a lot of bold colors in his movies. And so if you watch The Collector, you go back, you can freeze frame. Almost every scene has some sort of, primary color or visual color in it, and
right.
that was intentional. And obviously we enhanced it more in the DI process, but it was tough in the sense because Arkin, the main character, he's wearing black. The bad guy's wearing black and a mask.
Right.
The house has no electricity, and
right.
so that was fun. But motivating light from windows and light sources, that was hard trying to find that. But it was fun when we can have our splices of color in there and really try to scare the wits out of people. It was fun. And I was never really a big bold color cinematographer. I was like, I don't know, it's like Dick Tracy or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's just not my cup of tea. But that was sort of what Marcus really wanted. Splashes of color everywhere, like an Argento film, like Suspiria.
Speaking of, like, when you're dealing with a director and you're planning the movie and the visual style, are you, now that you've got a lot of features under your belt, what am I trying to say here? Are you pushing the visual style more so, or is it a collaboration, or are there certain directors, they have a really, specific, just like in the Way of Collector, specific look that they're going for, and then you're trying to figure out how to achieve that? What is your typical, like, I guess, dialogue with directors in terms of the visuals?
I think it's on a project to project basis, and also depending how strong visually the director is, because some directors are more about what's on the page rather than less what's the visual. Not that they don't care about that. I mean, they do. They're just more derived, or they're just more focused on what's the scene at hand and what's the intention of the scene, the motivation of the scene, rather than like, I really want to push in on this character here. I want to be over this guy here, I've worked with both. Currently, the director I'm working with now is this guy named Stephen C. Miller. Stephen and I collaborate visually a lot, and the one tool we always use in our arsenal, sort of like tricks or visuals, is we both love the anamorphic lenses. So every movie we've done together is anamorphic, and I don't think we're going to change that. We love that, and I love anamorphic too. It's like one of my favorite formats.
Yeah, it gives you that great lens flare, that great
exactly.
horizontal.
Yeah, and just like you said about Robert Elswit, he uses them so well.
Exactly, and so that's sort of like our staple, and that's a given. Like any project we do, we just know. Much like Chris Nolan and Wally Pfister did, on top of using IMAX, all of their movies were anamorphic. And it's not that we're copying that. I just love the format. I love the shallow depth of field. I love just how it renders faces, contrast.
It seems very cinematic, yeah.
It's very cinematic, and that it just makes a movie that much bigger.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. And then, but each director's different. Exactly, yeah. And each director is different. Some want to be more hands-on to it, some don't. Sometimes you want to shoot a full frame. Sometimes they want to shoot the 240. It's really depends on what the director's feeling, and also what tells the story the best. But like I said with Steven, we know that anamorphic works for us, and so that's what we want to do. We do want to, the next, obviously when we get bigger projects, we want to shoot 70 mil or an IMAX.
Right.
That's the next format I want to really. The larger format stuff's exciting to me, I think.
So with Steven too, like it seems like you guys, like the movies you guys aren't afraid of like putting lights in the scene, which I think is pretty cool. And
yes.
Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, no.
Like,
I've done that a few
It's almost
times,
like
yeah.
right in the middle of like there'll be a lamp or something right in the middle of the shot, and it's like crazy lens flare, which I think is pretty cool. But I don't know if I'm sure that's intentional, obviously, but I just wanted to point that out. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. It is. It's like that I try to put lights in the shot and have lights in the background because you get that bokeh effect of the ovals of things, lights far away. They make these gorgeous ovals and they glimmer. And anytime I can use a light source like that, and it's actually doing two things. It's lighting the scene and it's also creating a certain mood and lens flare. So it's like not only am I using that so you can see it, but I'm also using it so it's lighting the actor. So I try to multi-purpose the light.
So the last 2 years or so, you've kind of been on a tear, especially with Steven, doing a ton of different movies. So with these projects specifically, they have big name talent and they're sort of big stories. And it seems, and I could be wrong, but it seems like you guys are really taking advantage of however much time you have and making things look much more expensive than I'm sure they really are. But what are those schedules like? Are they short turnarounds, or do you guys have, like a full support of Emmett Furla, or do they kind of give you, all right, you guys have 15 days, you got to get this done, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of everything you said, it's Randall Emmett and George Furla are the ones that run Emmett Furla, and they're really great guys. They've produced movies like Lone Survivor, End of Watch. I think Randall was a producer on Scorsese's Silence, the movie he just made last year. So it's like, so yeah, they have access to talent, and you'll get Bruce Willis on one of these action movies for like a day, and you have to sort of schedule the whole movie,
right?
Or basically all of his stuff in one day. Get what you can in that day, and then you go back with a double over certain things, because when you focus on that for that day, you're just focusing on Bruce's stuff, just Bruce's side, and that sort of thing. But yeah, the budgets are really tight. The budgets are tight, and the shooting schedule's tight, because the first one I did for them was this film. It was called originally Bus 657, but then they changed it to Heist. With it had Robert De Niro, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Dave Bautista, Morris Chestnut, Gina Carano, and so it had kind of some great people in there, and we had 20 days to do that. And then the first movie I did with Steven, which was a film called Extraction with Bruce Willis and Kellen Lutz, that one was 17, and then one became 16, and then we got into these weird things where one was 14 days, one was 13 days, and then we got it back up to 20 days. So you have to, you're thinking about, people ask me all the time, they say, well, Brandon, how do you shoot a movie in 13 days? How do you shoot a movie in this? And basically you have to, if you can write a script that works for that shooting period, that's awesome. I think Doug Liman just did a movie called The Wall, where the whole entire movie, it's a war movie. It's like, two guys stuck in a wall in Iraq and there's a sniper out there. That sort of works because it's only in one place.
Right.
The problem I'm having is, you have these great scripts, but they're, we're here, we're there, we're here, we're there.
Yeah.
And so we're having to move a lot, and it's hard on the crew when you only have 14 days. Like, the good thing that Steven does is he says, okay, look, if we're going to shoot, if I have to be in this house and this house, I'm going to get a location on that block. I can use 5 different locations.
Right.
Or in this place, we're going to use it as 3 different locations. So that way, at least if we have to move, we're only moving across the street rather than like moving the entire film company down the street, which that takes hours. So,
right.
He's really practical and smart in that sense. So we're always looking for multiple locations in one place, because that's really the only way we can do these type of movies, and to work at an extreme level of like professionalism and having the visuals look great and strong. And that's where, again, calling back to the music video, style of lighting fast, getting good results, and not being so precious over the images. And knowing exactly what you want. That's, oh my God, that is huge and key. If I can tell and stress that to filmmakers, don't go to a film set and go, I don't know. It's just the absolute, it's the death of you. Knowing what you want is like the most important. I mean, if I can give any advice to upcoming directors, just know exactly what you want. Go there prepared, be prepared. And yes, there'll be times where you don't know what you want, and you lean on your DP, you lean on your producers, you lean on, they sort of guide you in that way. Oh, we could try this, we could try that. But going to a set and just going, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, and I've been there. I've been out there with people, and you kind of have to hold their hand, and not be a jerk about it. Obviously, don't make fun of them, but you have to be like a psychiatrist. You have to be like, you have to get these people through this,
right.
And so, but knowing what you want is key. And like in these things, you have to, because we don't have time to mess around. Obviously, 13, 14 days to make a movie. It's crazy. So you got to work fast. Yeah. A lot of the actors like it too. It's really weird.
They like the quick schedule.
Yeah. We did one movie, called Arsenal with, Nicolas Cage. And it was the one movie, it was the first time I ever worked with him, and he really liked it. He liked the fast, how Steven liked it. He knew what he wanted and liked how fast he worked, and it was refreshing to him. I don't think he experienced something like that before, and so he really embraced it, which was cool. It was cool to see.
Well, one thing that I find interesting, and it's a lot of what you're talking about, especially regarding your music video history and, getting Bruce Willis for a day and having that experience to go, okay, well, we have 12 hours. We've got to get him in the movie as much as possible to cover, all the scenes that he's in, and having that knowledge. But one thing that I noticed that is sort of a trend, for better or worse, is, we'll have big jobs here, but then we also have jobs that I'll do that are super tight, where I'm just so lucky that I did put my hat in different places when I was learning, where you're almost, and I'm sure it's the same for you, you're almost a producer, you're almost an editor, an AD, and all of that rolled into one on those busy days, because like you said, we have 4 scenes to film, we only have one location, and then someone goes, all right, how about that house across the street? Someone go talk to them, and let's just get approval for one shot or whatever to tie this thing together. So it's just interesting how the industry is moving that way, where everyone wants everything done, cheaper, faster, but still better.
Right.
It's hard to get all 3 of those, at once.
Yeah, I normally draw, like, I have this running joke. I draw a triangle, right? And on each point of the triangle, I put cheap, fast, and good. I go, all right, okay, look, this is what we're dealing with. This works on a sliding scale. So you only get 2, so pick which ones you want. You want cheap and fast, or you want good and cheap, or what do you want? Because, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I know in commercials, not only do they just want the commercial now, that they want, we want the web content, and we want this, and we want that. They want all this stuff. When you're just trying to get a commercial, they want all this extra stuff. And so it's unfortunate, but that's the times we live in, and that's what we have to adapt to that. And I don't want a 13, 14-day shoot to be the norm, obviously. I just think for that project, or that sort of time frame, or how it worked, or how it was scheduled and funded, that's what we could come up with, and those people that we had. So, you can look at it and say, I'm not going to make a 14-day movie, or you can say, you know what, I can do this. This will be fun, and we'll have a blast doing it. It'll be crazy, but whatever. And that's sort of the way I look at it.
When you're, since you're moving fast on these films, thinking about like how great of crews we have here in Chicago, from a DP perspective, are you, or I guess factually, what are you? How are you crewing up in these films? Because you have to obviously have a reliable team if you're going to be. Right. If you're going to be doing this. So what are you? How many of you guys are coming from LA, and then are you guys hiring local crews? I know you guys are shooting a lot in the South. How does that work out?
So what happens is I'm coming from LA, the director's coming from LA, but as far as crew comes, I've started like bringing DIT, bringing AC, and an operator. And so I have those 3 guys from LA, and then let's say, for example, I just did a film in Atlanta. I had a crew that was, and Atlanta is extremely busy right now. I mean, that's basically Hollywood right now, is Atlanta. And I had a key grip who I've done 4 movies with, and a gaffer I've done a few movies with, that they, and their crew under them has worked with me, and so we've sort of established a rapport on how to work fast. You almost have to have a more advanced crew than normal to pull these things off, because in order to pull it off, you have to be lighting sets, 2 or 3 sets ahead of each other, and these guys get that, and my guys are dialed in, and they know by 5 o'clock I want to be on that set over here, but we got to get this one and this one out of the way. So they know we've already talked about the lighting. We've already talked about the setups of how we're going to do this. They're always 1 step ahead of me, 1 or 2 steps ahead of me. That
was my thinking, because I was like, man, I don't know how you do this. And I know we've done a couple of projects here, or commercials, with Larry Fong, and he has remarked about many of the crew guys that are like sort of the go-to guys here in Chicago, and talked about how how fast they are and stuff. So I'm assuming that it's good to know that there are people, I guess, all around the country that are like, you can crew a movie and do that, and be relied on, and
Well, it reminds me of Tom Stern, Eastwood's DP, and their crew. I mean, they've been working together for like 25 years, and I've always heard that they're so fast, and they just have a shorthand, which I feel like you probably want for yourself.
100%. Yeah, no, and it's funny. Tom Stern was, he started as Eastwood's gaffer, and then Jack Green was shooting for him, and then Jack Green sort of went on, did other projects, and then he just moved Tom Stern up. And Tom Stern also gaffed for Conrad Hall, which having that background was like, working with that guy was a master. And I think Tom Stern I think he was a gaffer on Road to Perdition. I think that was his last gaffing job.
It's a beautiful movie.
Which is, I mean, not a bad way to go out as a gaffer and
not at all.
Shooting, but and I've met Tom Stern a few times, and I know one of the not to harp on him so much and get off to a tangent, but I mean, one of the best experiences I had at AFI was, Conrad Hall had recently died, and Tom Stern came in with like a couple months afterwards with Road to Perdition, and he put in the DVD, and we basically sat down and watched the entire movie, and he said, at any point you want to know how I did this, just stop, somebody raise their hand or say, hey, can we talk about it? And that's what we did. It literally took us 5 hours to get through the movie, but it was like the most educational, eye-opening, awesome experience, because he told us how he did everything.
That's
and
amazing.
It was like, I was like, oh my God, this was worth the film's school admission for everything, because you're just getting it right from the guy who did it, and he was telling you how Conrad Hall worked and how they did things. It was just, and they gave, like, Conrad Hall had these like sort of nicknames for lights, like I want a Connie Hall Ripper, I want a Skipper, I want a bounce, skip bounce. They had all these like code names for things, and you start to learn that, like, gaffers like, oh, you want a skipper here, you want to bounce, and they're like, oh yeah, I heard that. So, that was cool.
What is the if you can name, like, I don't know if there's a specific instance, but I'm just curious to know. I think people would be interested in, like, whatever your most. What was like your like a real challenging scene in any of these films you've done, or is there something specific that was a tough nut to crack, or I don't know, maybe.
Gotcha.
If there's something that stands out to you.
There's a few. Well, I don't know if you guys have seen Heist, the DeNiro bus movie.
I have.
All right, so I don't know if you've ever shot on a bus.
Nope.
No.
And a moving bus at that. Yeah. Shooting on a bus
without Keanu Reeves.
Without Keanu Reeves, yeah. That was our running joke on the on the movie. We kept going dun 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 dun. Our shooting, or my director would play it on the phone. He'd put it on YouTube and start playing it, so everybody would react. But no, shooting on a bus, a moving bus, is very difficult, and not a
it's an actual moving bus, like it's.
There were times
like
where it was
trailer.
actually, it was on. Well, there were times where we would pull it.
Okay.
We'd have to pull it, and then there were times where we actually drove it, and then there were times where I had to do poor man's process, which that scared the crap out of me, because you got a bus, there's windows everywhere, And when you're doing like a fake sort of poor man's thing, you're like, it's not going to look right. Or, and I was researching LED screens. I wanted to look at like, poor man's process with like projectors. I just didn't want to do a green screen thing.
Right.
We couldn't. Then I found out we couldn't because just the budget just wouldn't work out.
Now, was this a similar situation too, where you had a cast that you maybe had limited days, and now you're on a moving bus, and you need to figure out a poor man's process? So it's a lot of riding on your shoulders. It sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know I had Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Dave Bautista for the run of the show. The one that I didn't have for the run of the show was De Niro. So I had De Niro for 4 days, and so obviously you have to shoot his stuff. He's mostly in a casino, and then he's like in a restaurant, and then he's at the bus at the end of the movie. So it was contained in that bit, and De Niro was great and to do all his stuff, and he had his process. But yeah, you're like, okay, I have this much action on the bus, and the days where we actually were moving the bus, it was a learning curve because I had 2 cameras, myself operating, another operator, 2 ACs, a sound guy, the director, and an AD, right?
Right.
And then I had all the actors on the actors. So I had 3 hijackers, and then I think 11 passengers.
Yeah.
So I think there were like 22 people on that bus all in total. And then, once the bus moves and you put your camera up, and you're like, oh my God, this is great. So after we did like our first couple takes, I'm like, oh shit, this is going to take a long fucking time. Pardon my French, but it's just like, this is going to be rough. Because then the director was like, all right, we're going to go over here and do this. We're going to go over here and do that. He thought we could just jump around. I said, no. I said, Scott, this is not going to work this way. Director's name was Scott, man. I said, Scott, it's not going to work this way. We're going to shoot this direction. We're going to clean it up, and we're going to stop. You're going to move everybody from the back of the bus to the front of the bus. Then I'm going to put the cameras there, and the opposite direction. We're going to shoot that way. And that's how I did that. And I had a 2-mile stretch of highway that the police, knocked off for us in Alabama. And we just went back and forth all day and knocked out scenes like that.
Wow.
The first day, it was really tough. But after lunch, we got the rhythm. And by the second day, we were pros at it. And we did that for a week for all the bus footage. And then there were times where like, we did a poor man stuff. So I wish I could sit down with you guys and I could say on the night bus footage, I could say, okay, that's a poor man shot. That's a real shot. That's a poor man shot. And people can, sometimes they can't tell. Some of them can, but sometimes you can't. I thought we did a good job, and I thought the editor did a good job, putting that together, not seeing, showing off the movie magic tricks that we did in that. So that one was probably one of the most difficult.
So when you're dealing with a sequence like that, or any of these sequences in the movies you've been doing, is there a similar process to something like this? So, if I'm doing a sequence that I think might need a lot of different setups and just a conversation needs to be had between me and the DP. I love, sitting with the DP either the night before or a couple days before, maybe taking a cell phone out, just kind of roughing it, or talking to Mark and being like, hey, if I get all this, are you happy? And then he'll go, can you get me this shot or this shot, just to make sure if, X goes wrong, then I'll at least have this as a backup. Do you do that a lot with the different directors, or is it, I guess?
Yeah, 100%. The thing that also helps me with working with Steven is also an editor. And that helps. And he knows exactly what he wants, and we talk about it a lot. And we both like the same movies. We like the same directors, much like a lot of the same directors that Mark and I like. So I'm a huge fan of Tony Scott. Steven loves Tony Scott, Ridley Scott. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. Rest in peace, 100%. He was the best, man. But those type of things, and so we do diagrams or battle plans where they're overheads of the scene. You make your little camera positions and your little looking like basically if we went right above the whole action and we made our little camera positions, we're going to be here, here, and here. And then of course on the day there's a lot of improvisation of like, oh, what if we get this shot? What if we get this shot? And on these films I had to learn how to shoot with 2 cameras, shoot with multiple cameras.
Right.
And And Tony Scott was like a master at shooting with 5-6 cameras on set,
which is a lighting challenge, right? I mean,
exactly, 100%, because like that's the first thing a cinematographer gets afraid of is when you have more than one camera. You're like, oh God, how am I going to find another lighting position for that, or how am I going to find another place to do it? And I learned really quickly how to do that. And now I always shoot with 2 cameras. It's just like a thing. And sometimes,
and you operate too, right?
I do operate. Yeah. I do. That's sort of my thing. It's my Deakins and Richardson side of me, and Wally Pfister too. They all like to operate, and so I like being on the camera. I think it's fun. I can't sit down by the monitor. I have to be at the camera. And the cool thing is Steven likes to be by the camera too, so it actually works out pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, that's always the fun part, especially with you operating. I'm sure it's the same for me. I like being right by the camera because it just takes you back to when you're making movies on Super 8 or on DV tape or whatever. It's just you want to be right in the action. And I guess as far as like the shorter schedule with movies like Heist 2, there is a lot of fighting in all these movies and like Marauders and stuff. So when you have someone like Gina Carano, are you leaning on her to help choreograph stuff, or do you have a choreographer that has been planning things beforehand, or how does that work?
It's both. It's both, really. You're looking to Gina for her experience, to her kickboxing and MMA experience, to like say, hey, if we do this way, and the choreographer obviously has his ideas. They want to make it bigger, but they've been talking, they've been working out scenes, and there have been times where Gina's like, oh, I don't really like that move, but what if I do this, and this, and like, oh yeah, that's great, do that instead. That happens all the time. So then that's not unheard of, just because it works better for an actor. I know we did this scene in Extraction where, the stunt guys didn't realize, I think Bruce Willis was left-handed and he wasn't right-handed. But I mean, that sounds like a funny thing, right? But that's a huge deal, because if you choreograph the whole thing with a right-handed dude, you bring in a left-handed guy, he's like, well, I can't do it that way. I got to do it this way. Everything's flipped. Yeah. So, that was a learning experience too. But Bruce is a pro. He's done it. He worked it out. And it was easy.
Speaking of that, though, I'm curious because you're obviously a fan of, especially action movies,
like us,
like us. And
yes.
So when it comes to shooting with these iconic guys, Bruce Willis, Sylvester Stallone, obviously you have Bautista in a lot of movies you're doing, De Niro.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that like? How do you separate your fanboyness from?
That's a good.
I mean,
question.
these are long days, so I'm sure it melts away quickly. Yeah. But I mean, what was that like to first kind of meet some of these people that you've seen all their films and
it's God, how do you answer this without sounding like an idiot? But okay, so
surreal.
The first, it's surreal. The first day with De Niro, for example, because I have,
and you got to make them look good too. I mean,
100%,
right?
100%, and you got to have them trust you and not think you're like, you got to do your job. You have to be a professional, and you don't want them to think you're like, oh my God, that scene and so and so,
like you're like.
That scene in Heat, you can't do that. You have to show that you're professional. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So with De Niro, I knew he was coming to set, and we were at this hotel in Alabama, or we should Mobile, and there was this famous old hotel that we were shooting in, and we made it a casino actually, and that was his location. That was where he was, and he hadn't gotten on set yet. I hadn't met him, and I started to panic. I literally started to have like a panic attack, but I didn't want anybody to know. Mm-hmm. So I was on the perimeter of this, like it overlooked the it was like an atrium that overlooked the lobby of the hotel. It was a really beautiful hotel, and I'm walking around the perimeter of the atrium thing, and I'm just walking back and forth like, oh my god, I'm shooting Robert De Niro.
Every movie is coming like Taxi Driver, Godfather 2, everything's just
exactly everything's like coming into your head, and you're like, I can't screw this up. So then I go into the bathroom, I splash water on my face, I grab the sink, much like Logan did, and much like Joaquin Phoenix and Johnny Cash.
This is like your Eminem. This is like your Eminem right before you're gonna battle the.
It's exactly. That's it. It was 8 Mile all the way, B-Rabbit. I was jumping back and forth. All this. No. No, I literally I splashed water on my face. I looked in the mirror. I go, dude, and I looked in the mirror. I swear to God, I said this. I said, "You're the fucking DP. Walk boldly on your set. Be a pro. He's just an actor." And after that, dude, I walked on set. And I did a little test to myself. This was my thing, right? And you've always heard stories about this with Robert De Niro. I said, okay, I'm going to introduce myself. And if he says, I'm going to say, oh, hi, Mr. De Niro. And if he says, please call me Bob, then I'll be like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So as, of course, Scott, the director, Bob, this is our DP, Brandon Cox. So, hi, Mr. De Niro. He looks at me, shook my hand. He's like, hey, how you doing? Call me Bob. I was like, yes. So I did that inside though. But after that, it was just, it was like any other actor. But yet again, you're working with a living legend. I mean, the guy's like this iconic, huge guy.
He's like the living Brando. I mean,
yeah, exactly, 100%. And I I had to pinch myself a couple times because, I was professional, I was cool. And then after he'd do a scene or do something, I just like looked up and I was like, oh, hey, Brandon, you just shot Robert De Niro. So it's like, hey, so that was cool.
That's cool though. I mean, thinking about,
and he was very nice. Yeah. He was very nice and professional, and to watch him do his process was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, man, I was like shitting
thinking
my
back
pants
to Raging
the first time.
Yeah, thinking back to Raging Bull when you're 8 years old, and then like now you're shooting him in a movie. It's kind of a crazy full circle thing,
It's exactly. I mean, and that's what's funny. It's like, you saw these guys when you're growing up, and then you're working with them. It's crazy. The same thing with Bruce. It was like Bruce has his process and his thing, and it was cool. And
how was it? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay.
How was it like with Sly? I know you just shot Escape Plan 2.
Oh, and that was another one. Obviously working with Robert De Niro, working with all these other guys, it sort of prepared you to work with somebody like that. Then,
right.
With the same thing with Sly, you have Sly for...
That guy's a smart filmmaker, too.
Exactly. And so with Sly, you don't want to look like an idiot because I think personally, I mean, I'm not speaking for him, but I think he could sense if something's not right on a film set or something's not gelling right. He's a filmmaker.
Right.
He would sniff it out. He'd be like, he'd call bullshit. Like, hey, man, no, this is not the way you do it, But with Sly, Steven told me like this. We basically had this idea. We got Sly. We had the very first scene with Sly. The first day we got, I think he was on day 2 or day 3. I don't remember. I think day 2. He was sitting in the passenger seat of a car. Dave Bautista was sitting in the driver's seat. It was 2 cameras, French overs. I was on Sly. My other camera was on Dave. We shot this simultaneously. And Steven told me, all right, dude, we're going to set the pace really good because we got a lot to do today. I'm going to do one take of this and we're going to move on. We're going to show Sly this is how we do things. And this is how we roll. This is the way we do our things. So I was like, all right, cool. Well, I said, what if he wants another? He's like, he's not going to want another one. I'm telling you. I was like, all right, cool. So I set it up and, he introduced me to Sly. I got all that. And then we did the shot. Steven goes, cut. All right, moving on. Sly's like, what? That's it? And then I go, yep, that's Steven. And I get out of the car, and that was it. And then Sly looked at Dave, and he was like, yeah, that's what we're doing. And then that, for the rest of the day, that set the tone. He was laughing. He was Instagramming. He was, like, having a good time. Him and Dave were bonding. They'd never met each other. And I actually, I was talking to him. And the thing about Sly is when you're on set with him, obviously between takes, you still got to be professional and whatnot. But, once you start talking to him about a movie, which he has the best stories about everything, and you can't get him to stop. You got to kind of like, the AD's looking at you like, Brandon, shut up, we got to go. And you're like, hey, he's still talking, man. I'm not doing anything.
He seems very enthusiastic about
very,
and
super, super intuitive, in great shape. He's like 70 years old, and this guy's still doing a lot of his stuff. He obviously used a double for certain things that he didn't have to do, but a lot of things he did, man. And he's moving fast and doing his thing. And he just gave us some like great stories, and Rambo this, and even Dave Bautista had like a little giddy schoolgirl moment where he was just like, dude, you don't understand that scene in First Blood when you break down at the end. That was like, that made me want to be an actor. I was like, oh my God, Dave's turning into mush right now. But it was really cool. And I think one of the fight scenes we were doing, it was funny because I had my 2 cameras on as we do, and I was on one angle, one on one side. He's like, well, maybe if this punch comes here and you move over this way. And I'm just like, yeah, sure, over here. And because, you're filming and you're like, well, wait a minute, Rocky Balboa is giving me ideas and stuff. So, it's cool.
I wanted to ask you, I know we're going to wrap it up a little bit here, but
no worries.
But thanks for thanks for your time. But I wanted to ask you, I think I've talked to you about this, between you and me, but I wanted to kind of further explore it now that we're talking. I don't know if much of a discussion this is anymore because of budgets and constraints and things, but
sure.
As a DP, what are your feelings on the film and the digital and all that? What is your film versus digital, or I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if there is an option these days with some of these budgets and things, but what do you?
I mean, you probably know my answer on this, Mark, but I'll for your audiences and Neil, I'll give you. I mean, film first and foremost is still I love film. I always will love film, and I wish I could shoot more film. With the constraints on how these the movies I'm particularly doing right now are, it depends on what city it is. So if I'm in Ohio, Cincinnati, or Cleveland or whatever, it's kind of hard to kind of justify film on a 15 to 16 day shoot because one, you got to get a lab that's close, and there's no labs in Ohio.
Right.
And then, you have the lab costs and getting it back for post and all that. And, you can do it. It's just everybody has to be on board. And unfortunately for these films, I would love to shoot them film, but I personally think they work better as digital because we can just, I have my colorist on set there, my DIT on set. I'm online with my colorist who makes LUTs lookup tables that then sends to my DIT. And we're basically, this is kind of like, we're piping it through to show the producers and everybody watching, and even Steven, hey, this is what it could look like. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I do want to shoot another movie on film, and I think I will. People like J.J. Abrams and Quentin Tarantino, Spielberg, Chris Nolan, they're still shooting film.
Right.
And I think Rian Johnson for the new Star Wars, I think he's doing a mix of film and digital, but they are shooting film, and there's people still doing it. And you can do it. And film's sort of having this sort of resurgence again because I think a lot of film schools are adapting film back into their programs and not just using like a 5D or Red or Area or whatnot. But I think there's a place for both. And I've always felt that. I don't think there's one better than the other. I mean, I prefer film, but I think digital has its strengths as well as some of its weaknesses, and film has its strengths and weaknesses. But I still think two can coexist. I still think you can make it. I mean, because best movie, the one best cinematography this year, La La Land, it was shot on film.
Yeah.
And so it's still there. It's still surviving.
Do you find it seems like what I read, and obviously you're working and have a lot more experience with this than I do, but it seems like what I read is that film still has a lot of the latitude and the range. Much more so than digital, which I think is improving in the digital realm. But is there an advantage with digital, like specifically like shooting, like not just like looking at dailies and stuff, but is there something that's like, it's like, man, we would have never done that with film, or is there something that's like where you're actually like it's like a real benefit,
I mean, I think oh, go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead.
Finish.
No.
I think the cameras are becoming more and more sensitive, just like film, and having the Alexa 65, which in theory is trying to do exactly what the film cameras did in the 50s and 60s. These large format cameras that shot like Ben-Hur and these big, massive, epic films. The Aries or the Alexa 65 is like, that's a step in the right direction. That's closer to film than you can possibly get. And Greg Fraser, who shot Rogue One and Lion, he loves that camera, and he's a huge film guy. But he, that's his camera now. He loves it. To him, he thinks, you could get the large, grandiose feeling of a Ben-Hur, of a Lawrence of Arabia with that camera, but yet it's digital.
Right.
And, that's exciting. I mean, what they're doing now, Alexa, Aries really pushing their cameras, excuse me, to be more like film cameras, but we want the image to be like film, and we want it to be crisp and have the latitude and the range and the contrast and all this. And I think by having that large format camera, it's fun because not everybody's going to be able to shoot IMAX or 70 millimeter, 70 millimeter film. It's just not cost effective.
And Deacon shoots digital, right? Am I correct in saying that?
He does, yeah.
I think if there's one guy that shoots digital that I'm always impressed, it's him. I mean,
yeah, his stuff always looks great. Yeah,
it's insane.
It's insane, and he embraced the Alexa really quickly. And I think the last movie he shot on film was Hail Caesar for the Coens. And then he was kind
of forced to, I feel like, wasn't he?
Exactly. He was forced to.
Yeah.
And but he did Skyfall. That was the first Bond film shot digitally. With Skyfall.
Prisoners is beautiful,
Prisoners is incredible. And I mean, we can get all into his work with Denis and how he does this thing. But I mean, I'm so stoked for the sequel to Blade Runner because Blade Runner to me is the definitive cinematography film. I mean, If I were on if I had 4 films I had to like keep away with me, somewhere I could only watch 4 films or 5 films, it'd be Blade Runner, Apocalypse Now, Seven, and The Black Stallion. And I would probably throw Shawshank in there to give me hope to get off the island. But those movies, I mean, Blade Runner is like the definitive, but what Deakins has done with that new one, I'm like super psyched about that because I was a little worried because I was like, oh no, I don't know if he's going to shoot film and it's going to be anamorphic, and I was all and you worry about movies like that have such a iconic visuals to it, and then you wonder, oh gosh, is it going to translate into the sequel? And I saw the trailer and I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be, I'm in. I'm in.
It looks really good.
Yeah, I mean that's digital cinematography, and even Rogue One. I thought Rogue One looked great. I thought Fraser did a fantastic job, and he shot with the lenses they used on Hateful Eight and with the Ares Alexa 65. And
it had it kind of matched the older Star Wars films. There's something about it that had like I don't want to say vintage quality, but there was something about it that was not as pristine as like the Force Awakens or whatever.
I kind of like the word they use. I think it did have a vintage quality, and I think it did feel like the the series we grew up with as opposed to the prequels. I think it did have and that again, that's again where technology and sort of the past meet, because you've got these old lenses that shot Ben-Hur put onto this brand new camera, and it's sort of like a seamless thing with technology where you're using old technology with new technology, but yet you're creating these amazing looking visuals they're kind of not off in a bad way, but off in a good way where you're like, oh, that looks really that looks like an older film, but yet it's newer. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it doesn't look perfect. There's something about it.
It doesn't look pretty. There's something about it that just created. So I think that's fun where you can, you can mix that. You can mix those older lenses with these newer cameras, and you can get something new. So I'm for both. Obviously, I love film, like I said, but I'm for both. So I think they both can coexist. I'm not for one over the other. So
I love the transition with the Alexa 65 because I recently just rewatched Lawrence of Arabia, and the way Freddie Young shot that is just amazing. And if movies can get somewhere like that with digital, that'll be a pretty good place for filmmakers, so they can do both. But if they have to do digital for whatever reason, that at least they can come close to sort of their vision.
I feel that too. I feel the same way. I think that's great.
So I guess before we wrap it up, it's kind of I had a bunch of different questions I was going to ask you. I wanted to talk to you about Bruce Lee, but that could be for another time. No. I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan, and
as am I. Yes.
Wow, name dropping.
Yeah. Me and my I'm actually doing Jeet Kune Do right now in front of Mark.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
So one of the questions I was going to ask is, I often, whether I want to or not, have to shoot things, down and dirty and quick, which is it's always fun and inventive, but. In the movie, Tin Cup's not really part of this thing. It's just a reference. Kind of a weird transition there. Kevin.
How did you know Brendan loved Tin Cup?
Yeah, it's his favorite movie.
Tim Cup is awesome. It's just like it's about as good as that movie Daryl that Mark loves. Another inside joke I can't get into right now. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. The random references. I always do this to Mark. I'm like pulling weird film references to him. But Don Johnson and Kevin Costner have the 7-iron bet where Kevin Costner says he can play the whole course with just one club with a 7-iron.
Yeah, I remember that.
It doesn't necessarily have to be one thing, but let's say you had 12 days to shoot a movie, basically no budget. What would be your journeyman? Maybe like 3 lenses, camera, and maybe 1 or 2 lights that you think you could just kind of have fun with and create a full look based on having little.
Gosh, I would take an Alexa Mini. I would take, if I had 3 lenses, I would take a. Let me think. It'd be some sort of anamorphic lens. It'd be a 75, a 135, and a 50. I think I could do a whole movie with those 3 lenses. Alexa Mini. What series of anamorphics? I mean, I could go
1 Kino bulb,
but maybe, and it would probably be like a Kino Flow and like a 9-light Maxi Brute.
That's awesome.
I love a Maxi Brute. And I love a Kino Flow. So it's like, but the thing is now on Escape Plan 2, I used more LEDs on that movie than I ever have in my whole entire career.
Oh wow!
And those are really. I was kind of like popularity.
I was kind of like on LEDs, but now I'm a huge believer in them.
Yeah, I heard a lot of good things about them. I've seen them in the commercial shoots. They've been creeping their way into.
Yeah, Taylor just got a bunch too. A DP that I work with a lot here, and it's nice. I mean, they're quick to set up, and you get a nice soft light on everyone, and you can just move them around super quick.
And they're becoming more and more powerful too, and they're getting smaller, and the one thing, they don't draw that much power, and you can put them anywhere. Now they have like fabrics you can get these large sort of 8x or 12x of individual panels of LEDs, and you can sort of put them up on a wall or put them up on the ceiling, and you're not having to do all this crazy rigging anymore. It's really insane now. LEDs are really making a big push, and Greg Fraser, again, I hate to keep mentioning him, but he's a big proponent of. He used a lot of LEDs on Rogue One. And he found this company he likes to work with, Digital Sputnik. I'm not being paid by them or anything. I just know he's been using their lights a lot, and really is a big proponent of them. So yeah, they're coming through. But yeah, that would be fun. That camera, those lenses, those lights, and go off and go do something fun. That'd be kind of Terrence Malick it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a good challenge. And actually, speaking of challenge, one last thing I want to ask from my end is. I told Mark about this guy. I was a big fan of his short films, and I was really, really excited that someone found him and is giving him more and more movies. It's a guy that you did additional photography for, David S. Sandberg on Annabelle Creation.
David, yeah. David is fantastic. He is fantastic.
Yeah, he just seems like a great guy. I mean, all of his shorts are so stripped down with his wife, but they're done in such a beautiful way. But the question I have for you is, being a DP who is on these full shoots, what's it like for any other DP listening where you're actually coming onto a shoot, either taking over for another DP or kind of doing supplemental material for someone who's already created a look?
Yeah. I know where you're going with that. So that DP on that film was Maxime Alexander. If you guys have seen High Tension and Mirrors, and I think he did Maniac. Is that what it was? Mm-hmm. The one with Ethan.
Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood. God, I'm sorry about that. I got the first name right. So anyway, yeah. Maxime could not be there. They had some additional photography they had to do, and Maxime couldn't be there because he was on another show, and so he had called me, and I think his operator we share an operator. So, and he also had my key grip. And so they all said, "Oh, you should call B. Cox, call Brandon." So Maxime approved me. James Wan approved me. All those guys. And so then I went and met with David, and David's Swedish. And I don't know if you have met many Swedish people or people from that area. David's very calm. He's very cool. You start talking about the project. We start talking, and they're just very. It's not like they're not nice or anything. He's just very calm and collected. He doesn't give you much. He has a fantastic poker face. Like he would be. I always said, I was telling David, I was like, man, you would be an amazing poker player, dude. You don't give anybody anything, but couldn't be a nicer guy. And the cool thing was about David was he's so prepared and so smart, and just we watched the movie together. What he had. And the majority of the movie was done. They really wanted additional scares and additional footage on top of what they had. And so David gave me an animatic that he drew and he put together of everything. And it was all right there. I didn't have to figure out a shot. It was all right there. We did exactly what his animatic was. And there was a couple things we hey, let's change this, let's change that. But no, he's fully prepared, very smart. And I think he just landed big DC movie, Shazam. I think he got it.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's good for him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and couldn't be a nicer guy. And I still talk to him. He's great. He's a person I'd love to work with again too. And so, yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed his time, and it's tough because yes, you are, when I came in onto that job, I didn't set the look. That was Maxime's thing. So yeah, you have to basically, I called Maxime and told him, I said, look, man, I'm not here to get my demo reel on. I'm not here to get my look into the movie. I'm here to make it look like I was never here.
Before we let you go, B. Cox, what's next for you? What are you, what's on the horizon?
It's right now there's a few things. I'm reading a lot of scripts right now. It looks like, Steven and I are probably going to do Escape Plan 3 because Stallone signed on. Mm-hmm. Dave wants to do it. And I haven't read a script yet, and I don't know what exactly is going to happen with that one. But I'll once I sort of once it gets a little closer to the August, I think that's right now, that's the front runner. But there could be other things. There's a drama I was reading. There's an action comedy I was reading. So there's a few things in the fire. I'm hoping, Escape Plan 3 will be fun. And then I think from that point, it's probably move in a different direction, to see, what else we can do. There's possibly a movie in India, like a coming of age story. Really, really, really cool script.
That'd be rad.
So yeah, that would be fun. And the more these things develop, I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I'm glad to hear that you might do some comedy and things like that. I would love personally, not because you're on the show, but I'd love personally to work with you. When Mark showed me your stuff a long time ago, I definitely put you at the forefront of my list of people to work with, just because I could tell that you probably have the same.
Yeah, we got to work on this Illinois tax credit.
Yeah, right.
Get some more.
Exactly. Yeah.
Get some more.
Because he told me, he's like, oh, he loves Spielberg, Janusz, Kaminski, all these movies, Tony Scott, and I was like, okay.
I don't think you've ever shot in Chicago, though, right?
I've never been to Chicago.
Oh,
I've only been to the airport, so I owe myself a trip.
Well, cool, Brandon.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I love the format of the show, and I love the way you guys do it. And yeah, man. All right. Well, thank you guys so much, man. This was
thanks for your time. I really appreciate you guys you doing this. I think that was inspiring from a filmmaker standpoint in terms of his journey, from being, starting off as an illustrator and then finding his way into filmmaking and kind of making it, basically on his own in Hollywood and shooting feature films. And he's really smart and super great, and he, has a unique style. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that little interview.
Yeah, please write in if you have any questions for Brandon. Maybe we can forward him over. We'll have to have him on again to talk Spielberg. He's a fellow Spielberg lover and Janusz Kaminski lover.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do that.
Yeah, so we'll have to have him on. And I think that's going to be a big episode. I mean, we both love Spielberg. That's going to have to be like our 50th episode or something. If we get there. But if you guys don't write in or send some more reviews, we're just going to have to cancel it. No, I'm just kidding.
We're just going to have to kill Neil.
Mark will have to strangle me.
Yeah. Cool, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening. We ask that you rate, review, and subscribe to Best of the Best on iTunes or your preferred podcast app. Have ideas for show topics, opinions, or just want to say hello? Send us an email to bestofthebestpod@gmail.com. Till next time, special thanks to Radar Studios and long live Don Hogue.